Hello and welcome to the Mindset and Mindfulness podcast with me, your host, Sandy Powell.
Welcome to today's episode. Our guest today is a body image coach and an anti-diet fitness instructor who believes in a feminine approach to joyful movement. Welcome, Courtney McCarthy.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You gotta give us an introduction of like take that apart a little bit. What do
Yeah,
you
for
do and how
sure.
did you get
You know what?
there?
It's funny. I get a lot of questions. The anti-diet confuses people because they're like, well, what does that in the end have to do with fitness? So the way that I describe it and how I relate to kind of like what I do and the broader picture of it is that anti-diet is more of a mindset of rejecting the pressure from diet culture to continuously try to make ourselves smaller. So it's not just about the anti-diet itself. That's a part of it, is rejecting that diet mentality, but it's also everything that goes along with that. The when I say making yourself smaller, it's also about, you know, we're working on making sure you feel comfortable being seen, being heard, using your voice, taking up space in your life. All those ways that women are taught to make ourselves smaller, make ourselves more people pleasing, make ourselves more digestible. We're kind of rejecting all of that in the work that I do. And I started off as a fitness instructor. I started doing it just because I loved it. I had an amazing fitness instructor who changed my life and the way that I felt about movement. And I wanted to give that gift to other women. I wanted other women to feel the kind of joy and the freedom and the safety that I felt in her class. The more I taught, though, and the longer I taught, I realized that just teaching fitness wasn't enough to do the work that I wanted to do. Women needed more support. They were struggling with motivation. They were struggling with their self-esteem. They were struggling with their relationship with their bodies. So I ended up learning how to support people using fitness as the kind of modality, but also providing that broader level of support of, okay, how do we feel better? How do we get this thing to work? How do we get them the results that they want? Which is feeling better about themselves without necessarily focusing on changing the size of their body.
I was just gonna say, yeah, because it's not just the outside, the
Well, and
inside,
the
right? It's
research is really clear,
the
and
mindset.
many of us as women have this lived experience, right? Where we've done the things to try to change our body. We've done the diets, we've done the extreme workout plans, we've focused on weight loss, and I have yet to meet a woman that hasn't said to me, it doesn't really work. Maybe it works for a little bit, maybe whether it's a few months, a few years, a few weeks, but then something always happens, whether it's life gets in the way, whether you experience illness or just that big drop in motivation. It none of so It's so hard to get those sustainable long-term results. And the research is clear as to why. It's that when we focus on weight loss as the goal, when we focus on the aesthetics of our bodies, that doesn't create the outcomes that we want. It doesn't lend itself to that long-term sustainability or viability. So instead of trying to, the definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again. And with diet culture, it's blaming ourselves when it doesn't work, right? It becomes an issue that it's our lack of willpower, it's our lack of dedication, it's our laziness, etc. Now it's time to flip the script and say, no, like, why don't we actually focus on what does work? And a huge part of that is joy. We want to naturally do the things that make us feel good. So how can we extend that to movement? How can we find movement that we enjoy? How can we change the way that we motivate ourselves and the way that we talk to ourselves so that it's based in love and caring rather than the shame and the punishment and the self-degradation? And that is where I love hearing the women I work with say, this is the first time that I've been able to stick with something. And there's not the shame and the guilt when life has its challenges, when things do throw you off track. it feels so much easier and less dramatic to kind of keep going and keep moving through it because you have those skills and the focus is different.
Wow. Yes. Yes. I mean, it's so much, yeah, to unpack. Sorry.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, I mean, really, we've been, yeah, taught that, yeah, our looks are so important, right? And I think
Mhm.
taking that back and really um taking over like that ownership of like that it's more important how I
Mhm.
feel about myself than what you all think of me. You know what I mean? Like that is like such a
Yeah.
big step, like a big learning process, I guess. That
Yes.
it also took me a very long time, right? I think it's just
Mhm.
how we, yeah, how we how we grow up. Like it's part of like, like because at first we don't really know who we are. We think and we try different things and we look to the outside to kind of reflect it back, do they
Yeah.
like me if I'm like this and like that and blah blah
Yes.
blah. And it somehow gets, yeah, it kind of gets stuck in that cycle of like, like me reinventing and me trying to please and things like that. And of course, yeah, like
Mhm.
how you were raised and right, like
Yeah.
were you
Yeah.
able to take up space, or was it more like, oh my God, stop the whining, stop being so dramatic and stop
Yeah.
showing
So
so many feelings?
emotional.
Exactly. Right. So like
Mhm.
there's just so much. And I think you're right. Like it really, exercise or movement is just one pillar of
Mhm.
a holistic approach to making yourself feel better, or yeah, like taking care of yourself, in a way
Mhm.
that makes you happy.
Yeah. And I
And yeah, I
also, I
can.
often view movement as like, it's kind of the gateway. Is
Yeah.
a lot of women come to me because like if we think about compartmentalizing the areas of our life, like many of us, especially, like let's say you're like 35 plus, you've probably done a lot of the work and you have a lot of accomplishments with being more confident when it comes to your parenting or when it comes to your career or when it comes to your relationships. I feel like being able to tackle your relationship with your body and how your body looks often is kind of the last thing. It's the most difficult, it's the most vulnerable. So it's something that many of us have kind of like put off.
Yeah.
And so most women don't come to me saying, they want to transform their relationship with their body. Most of them are coming to me to heal their relationship with movement, to find a way. Okay, I know I need to work out. I know that it's going to make me feel better. My doctor has said I need to work out more. Or I've noticed a change as I'm aging. I want to make sure I can still keep up with my kids, or I want to get down, up and down off the floor without pain. So they're coming to me for those fitness things. And it's through fitness, it's the more that we figure out, okay, as I said, like, how can we create a movement routine that allows you to be consistent? How can we change the way that you motivate yourself so that it's rooted in love and acceptance? And it's through that work that their eyes kind of get open to, oh my gosh, life could be so different. And that's where the work kind of naturally ends up flowing into body image and boundaries and how we treat ourselves, how we treat other people, and also some of those broader subjects of, you can't talk about accepting and trusting and healing your own body without examining the hierarchy of bodies that we're kind of taught that we live in, and the way you relate to other people's bodies and the space that you allow them to take up and hold. So it kind of ends up being this beautiful journey that we go through together, and fitness really is just the start of it and stays kind of that foundational piece.
Right. Yeah, like I can totally relate. Like that's how I feel with my mindfulness thing. Like
Yeah.
they come to me, like, oh, I need more mindfulness. I need more
Yes.
control of my life. I need to feel better. I need to regulate my emotion better. I need to feel less stressed and overwhelmed. And then it turns into, okay, well,
Yeah.
we need to look into all these areas and tell me, when do you feel this way and how can
Hmm.
we, support you best, and what do we need to change? And a lot of times it's really like how they, yeah, like how they deal with things. Like it's not like,
Hmm.
right, like it's too much stress or whatever, but it's the added things that they layer on top of it, right? The way they see it, the way, like, okay, like you had a bad day or a bad meeting. And then instead of accepting it as it was, they're like, oh, I should have said this. I should have done
Yeah, it's the
this. Oh,
meaning
and
that they
it's
give
the
to it.
same as last time. And what
Mhm.
can I do next? And it becomes like this vicious cycle. It becomes this much bigger problem, right? And then
Yeah.
like mindfulness then kind of takes it back down as to like, okay,
Mhm.
this is a situation. This is what happened. And yes, it may not have gone the way you wanted it, but what can we take from this? Like let's
Yeah.
not, like let it not ruin the whole day or whatever, or make everything based off that, but just kind of take it as a lesson. What can you take it? What can you do
Yeah,
better
exactly.
next time? And really just,
Taking that
yeah.
shame and the judgment out of it. Well, and we use a lot of mindfulness in the work that we do. And even,
Mhm.
so it's both myself and I have some amazing instructors who work with me. And part of how the approach that we take is to fitness is different, is that we bring that mindfulness to it. So, for example, instead of how often have you heard fitness motivation being like, okay, you got to just like push through, you got to, get to the end, which don't get me wrong, there is a place in fitness for being like physically challenged. However, most of the time, what we're saying in our classes is tune into your body, listen to your body. What's happening in your body right now? How does this feel? Because the experience of you can be doing the exact same movement, but day to day, it's going to feel different in your body.
Mhm.
And when we take the shame and judgment of that, especially being women who have, many of us are still in menstrual cycle phase or perimenopausal phase where our hormones are so different day to day, it doesn't make sense. And this is where that kind of feminine approach comes in, is it doesn't make sense for us to have the same expectations of ourselves and of our bodies day after day after day, when every day that we wake up, our bodies are different. Something else is happening in our body. So rather than having that mentality of like, oh, I just have to push through, it has to look the same, or judging ourselves if we're not performing the same way, instead, it's saying, okay, how can I meet my body where I'm at today? How can I listen and start to look for the language of my body, how it communicates to me?
Mhm.
And when we take the shame and the judgment out of that, that's where the magic of motivation happens, because now it's not like, oh, I'm forcing myself to do something that doesn't feel good. Now it's, okay, I can make this be what I need it to be in this moment. And that's a good thing. No matter what it looks like, that's a good thing. If it's 5 minutes of movement, fantastic. I've had people show up to my classes where they just show up and they're just on their mat and they're just there. And that's what they need in that moment. They just needed to show up and be with people and hold space for themselves. And they don't actually do any of the movement, but they know that that's still a good thing because they took that time. They slowed
Mhm.
down. They showed up for themselves. And as you said, they just go on with life. It doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing where you're shaming yourself because you didn't do X number of push-ups or you didn't, lift this number of weight. And there's no comparison between people because we're constantly reaffirming that this is your journey. This is your workout. It doesn't matter. Everyone else's bodies are feeling different things in this day. So it's
Mhm.
just about what feels good in your body. And that's what allows people to get that consistency that they want, because they aren't forcing themselves to do it. It's something that they want to do because it feels good.
Yes, yes, of
Yeah.
course. That is so much more intrinsic then, right? If you like
Yeah.
really like what you're doing, you're more
Yeah.
likely to do it over and over, right?
Exactly. And you're giving yourself permission to just let it be whatever it is. I think there's this mentality especially in the fitness industry, but also in the diet industry, that like every workout matters. Like every workout is life or death. Every workout is make or break. Every meal, every snack is make or break, right? Like if you don't do a workout up to a certain point, you failed. If you eat the wrong thing, you've failed. And it's just simply not true. Like when we think about health, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So it's not about getting it right every single time. It's about showing up consistently over long periods of time. So we want that kind of long-term learning rather than the short-term push.
Yeah, like going with the flow and really falling in love with the process. right? Like,
Exactly.
and
Enjoying the journey.
exactly. Yeah. And like you
Yeah.
said, it is a lifelong process. Like all of these things,
Yeah.
I think we have this mentality like, oh, and we're just gonna get in this bikini body and we're doing the photo shoot or whatever. We have this event gonna go to, the wedding or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna push, 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 and then then I can be whatever again
Yeah.
until the next event, rather than
Yeah.
like you said, the consistency, just kind of like going with the flow and hey, today I'm feeling it today, and then next way I'm not, and blah, 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 and just kind of going, like you said, holding that space. And, hey, there's days where I'm like, I don't know, I walked for an hour today, and then there's other days, man, I could barely get out of bed, but I did a few yoga poses. I don't know,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And really, like
Yeah.
you said, like really holding that space and just feeling into, tuning in, and really, yeah, like connecting with yourself and allowing
Mhm.
yourself to be that. Like it is
Yeah.
okay, it
Yeah.
is okay that it's the same with like your to-do list. There's days where you're like, oh my God, I got like 10 things done. Woohoo! And then there's days where like, oh my God, I
One thing, one
one
thing.
thing. Let me do the one thing so I can
Yeah.
okay, cross one thing off. And
Yeah.
really to be okay with that, like really,
Yeah.
like you said, non-judgment, and really give yourself grace. Like really,
Yeah.
who are you that is constantly like, why are you the drill sergeant, right? Like why are you this like army person, like, oh,
Yeah.
you need to do 10-20 push-ups every day, show up
Yeah.
like this, like we're
Yeah.
not.
And that works for many of us in the short term. But again, it's that long-term burnout that we just can't sustain it. And it really aligns with the research too, as far as when we look at what's actually healthy and what's actually good for us and our
Mm,
bodies. Weight cycling. So the process of yo-yo dieting where, where you talked about where we go hard and we lose a
mhm,
bunch of weight and then we drop off and the weight comes back. Um, that is so much harder on our bodies
mhm,
and really works against the way that our bodies are designed. So, um, if you've ever heard, there's Dr. Linda Bacon. She's the kind of founder of the Health at Every Size organization. She writes in her book all about how, our bodies are beautifully designed from an evolutionary perspective for weight gain. When you think about, periods of famine, periods of drought, maybe we didn't have access to food in earlier years. When we were in like hunter-gatherer societies, it was normal to go longer periods of time where you didn't have consistent access to food. So our bodies evolved to thrive and look for those times when we could gain weight because that ensured our survival. It ensured us being able to make it through those periods where resources aren't as scarce. Weight loss meant bad things were coming. Weight loss meant we didn't have enough resources. Weight loss meant starvation. Weight loss was a threat to our survival. So rather than fighting against that, which is really what dieting and the focus on weight loss does, right? It's trying to fight against our body's natural physiology. It's like, okay, how can I work with this? If I know that, weight cycling isn't good for me, if I know that shame isn't good for me, there's even a term I read recently called shame, what was it? It was like shame and inflammation, shameflation or something like that.
oh wow.
Where it talked about how shame and when we're struggling, when our mental health is struggling, it has physiological and physical impacts. It has physical consequences and um, it can create excess inflammation in the body when we're really struggling with our self-esteem. So when we take all of that into consideration, it's like, okay, this approach of shaming myself, pushing myself hard, and then dropping off again, I'm doing it in the name of being healthy, but it's not actually what the science says works. It's what the money making diet industry and fitness industry says that works, but it's not actually what works. And many of us have lived experience to say that, right? Like I, myself included, I, for many years, did lots of fad diets and lots of extreme programs, and I never found anything until I adopted this approach to movement that actually works, that actually made me want to show up. So it's about shifting our understanding of our bodies and accepting the science and saying, okay, there's a natural set point to my weight where my body feels good. There's usually about a like 10 to 15 pound range where our bodies just naturally want to be, where we naturally feel our best. So it's about finding that and figuring out what behaviors make us feel our best, and then trusting our bodies to do their thing, trusting that they are the beautiful, intelligent, wise, perfectly designed, whether you believe in a higher power or the process of evolution, whatever it is, just accepting that our bodies are amazing and that they know what to do to keep us alive and healthy. And that process, oh my God, letting go of the reins can often be, and I'm sure you deal with this in your mindfulness practice, right? Like it can often be the most scary part of trusting that your body knows what it's doing and that it's all going to be okay.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Especially in the beginning, right? When you don't have that to fall back on it, right? Like you don't have that trust yet, or you're not like
Yes.
that intuition yet. You're not into.
Well, we don't have these role models, right? Like we weren't shown this growing up, most of us. It is new.
Yes, but really, just like that's part of why I like to talk about these things, right? To really empower people and show them, you gotta start somewhere, and you gotta kind of get those little breadcrumbs, follow them wherever they lead, and really kind of just take stock of who are you, and how do you feel best without all the other stuff outside. Like it does not matter, really what the husband says, what the coworkers say, what even friends, it's really just like, how do you feel?
Yeah.
And how do
What
you
is
feel
your
in your
voice?
day to day? Like really, like what does it matter if everybody thinks you're amazing, but you go home and you go to sleep like crying yourself to sleep? Like, like what's the point? Like I always feel like, it's the most important thing is how you feel. Can you look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day? And you feel good about yourself? Like,
And
that's
for someone like myself, like I've been on the journey where when I was at my smallest, when I was doing all the things that you're supposed to do, right? Like, I remember for a while I was eating like raw vegan and I was working out multiple hours a day. And when I got to this I had a number in mind that I was pursuing for many years. And I got to that point, and I remember thinking like, but wait, I thought everything was supposed to be fixed. And I still, like, as you said, like first of all, I had a whole bunch of new health issues come out when I was at my smallest, because, in hindsight now I can say I wasn't doing things that was healthy for my body. So I was having a ton of digestive issues. I had new cystic acne that appeared. I was exhausted all the time. And from the outside, I'm sure it didn't look that way because it was when I was young, I was in my 20s. I was still teaching like 27 classes a week, which is a lot. So from the outside, I'm sure I'm not that I'm sure. I know because people would come up and say to me, like, what are you doing? Like, you look fantastic. And little did they know. And I was kind of hiding that, like, I'm not doing fantastic though. I might look it, but I'm not doing fantastic. And it also didn't solve any of my self-esteem issues. I was just as obsessed with keeping the weight off. My self-worth was entirely tied to my weight. And so losing the weight didn't solve it. And it wasn't until I did the harder work of asking the tough questions and kind of looking myself in the mirror and really doing the work of healing that now I'm in a bigger body, but I feel like I am the most confident I've ever been and the most at home in my skin, and life is not so stressful all the time.
right.
I don't worry about what I eat, and I don't worry about I don't stress about movement. It just happens. It happens naturally. And when you heal your relationship with movement and with food, I crave salads just as much as I crave a hamburger. And I, eat apples just as much as I have chocolate. And it's all so much easier and stress-free because I know that it's all going to be okay. And that's what I hope anyone who works with me or hears podcasts like this takes away is that, as I said, your body is so wise, and it's okay if fitness and health and exercise and movement looks different than what the fitness industry says it should be. 5 minutes of movement is amazing. Slowing down is amazing. Getting sweaty sometimes is amazing. You don't have to force yourself. I remember forcing myself to do. I used to bribe myself. I would give myself permission that if I went to the gym and I ran on the treadmill, that was the only time I was allowed to watch my trashy TV, my trashy reality TV. And that's what would, but I still would hate it. I would hate every second of it. And now I'm just like, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that kind of movement. There are so many other options out there for me that I enjoy so much more. And it doesn't have to look like that. It can look different.
Yes. Yes. And your body responds so much better, I'm sure.
Yeah. I can dance for an hour without any effort.
Yeah.
But you asked me to run on a treadmill and my brain is just like, oh, I'm so bored.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's a correlation too. Like you're like hating every second of it and like pushing.
Exactly.
Like you're still holding on to, you're clenching every part of your, like if you're also you're not releasing anything, right?
I'm not releasing and I'm not letting go. And versus like because I always like to be fully transparent and say, even with all of this, even me being a fitness instructor and I teach like 6-7 days a week, I still have times where motivation is often an action, not a thought. So there's still many times where I'm like, oh, I don't want to go do this. But I can truly say that nowadays, with the way that I've healed my relationship with movement and the types of movement that I do, I always feel better after showing up because I get that emotional release, because I get that surge of joy and feel good dopamine and serotonin, and because I may be forcing myself to show up in that initial like first moment, but I'm not forcing myself all the way through it. It's like, oh, I kind of relax in because I say this is what feels good, and I can adjust it as I need to day to day.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you still have ups and downs. Yeah.
Yeah. But now it's so
Allowing
much more
yourself
fun.
that's okay to, like
Yeah.
like we said, it's a cycle, it's a going up and down. And
Yeah.
today's level of motivation might not be woohoo through the roof.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
knowing that that's okay too. And we can still show up for ourselves and do some sort of movement and things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's amazing what happens when you take that pressure off of yourself.
Yes.
Which I feel like the fear is, I've had so many people tell me, well, like if I don't stay on top of myself, if I don't shame myself, there's this fear of the loss of control and
I was
of
gonna
like
say that
all the
control.
bad things happening. Or somebody says, one of the phrases I use with mindful eating is giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. And they say, if I gave myself unconditional permission to eat, I would eat everything in sight. And the reality is, it's just not true. It's when you take that pressure off, our bodies are designed to move. They love movement. What's making you not love movement is the shame, is the guilt, is the script that's forcing you to do things or telling you that there's something wrong with you. So when you take that away, your body naturally often will gravitate towards the movement, especially if you've found movement that you enjoy. Just like you won't eat everything in sight. You're just going to eat the things that you want in that moment and that make you feel good.
Yeah, and it's not the forbidden fruit anymore, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
anything that it's forbidden is so much. It's like a red target too, right? Like
exactly. We're all just rebellious teenagers in our souls.
Yes, and once you take that
Yeah.
off the table, it's just like,
Tell me not to do something. That's exactly what I want to do.
exactly. Don't think of the pink elephant. What are you thinking of? The pink
Exactly.
elephant.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, when you take that pressure away, when you are able to learn how to exist much more in tune with your body, all of that stress goes away because you don't need it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
great.
honestly, it was part of my journey too, like losing the baby weight, like the COVID weight and stuff. And yeah, I didn't even realize how much I was stress eating and emotional eating, and then gaining the weight or getting stuck with the weight. And then, of course, shaming myself for stress
Yeah.
eating, emotional eating. And I mean, it was like such a shitty cycle. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
once I was
Well,
aware of it and kind of like looked at it and like really do the mindful eating and like really looking into, okay, like why do I want to eat the chocolate right now, right? Like, is
mhm.
it like an emotional response? Like, I'm just feeling whatever, and I just kind of want to get that, I don't know, dopamine hit or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or can I do something else to release whatever tension or whatever frustration I was feeling, right? What else can I do? And
Yeah.
really leaning into that, finding more healthier ways. Not just like, okay, let's just like just eat apples and carrot sticks all day, but like really
Exactly.
like treating myself like really curious, becoming curious, like not
Yeah.
like in a bad way, like not shaming, like, oh my gosh, you want that chocolate again? Yeah, of course. No, but really like, do I really want that chocolate? Or is it more like is it a backdoor, because I was feeling something that I was going to do?
Yeah. And if you want the chocolate, how can I make it like the most enjoyable experience? Like, can I be
Yeah, like I don't
present?
need
Can I
50
savor it?
chocolates. Exactly. I can
Yeah.
have the chocolate and totally like, because like that's another thing. Like when you eat, like because we're so like stress eating and we're eating so fast and we're doing like 15 other things. And so,
Hmm.
right, people eat in front of the TV and then they're like, oh yeah, like give me a bag of chips and it's gone. I'm just like
Yeah.
mindless eating. And then
Yeah.
once you take that away and you become more aware of, oh man, this tastes so delicious, and you savor it and you're like really feeling into it. Oh, I am actually kind of full. Like I don't need to eat, the whole bag. It
Hmm.
becomes, yeah, it really it changes everything. And
Yeah.
it removes all that, like you can really step back and like there's not all that fear and yeah, you don't need to have the control. You don't need to stand over yourself and
Yeah. Well, and even when we think about that fear of the weight gain too, right? Is when we break that down, for many of us, it's not the fear of the weight gain. It's the fear of, as you said, the meaning that we've given to the weight gain, the story that we have around it, or the things that we associate with the weight gain. So many times when you actually explore that, it's not
Mhm.
the weight that you're afraid of. It's different physical states of being or different emotions or different kinds of judgment.
Yeah, I was gonna say what
Um,
people say. Like,
yeah, it's what people say. It's what you think it means about you, that you're lazy or that you're not worthy. And again, when we take that away, like for so many of us, like genetics is the number one factor that dictates your body size. I have the same body that my mom had and my mom's mom had and probably her mom's had. Like the amount I would have to really fight, and which is what, when I was smallest, I had to really fight. My entire life was dedicated to how my body looked and my weight. That was what was required of me to change and to fight against my genetics. And there's nothing that says that that's the healthiest way of living.
no, I was gonna say
Right?
that's not worth it though.
No.
Isn't your
And for many of us,
happiest?
that's not the vision that we have for our lives, right? Like you don't think of your best friend and say, "Oh God, I love Carolyn because she has abs." I
Right.
love Carolyn because she gives up chocolate. Like, no, we want to be present and we want to have strong connections with other people. And in order to do that, you know, that shame gets in the way. You being self-conscious of your body gets in the way. So it's through the acceptance, it's through doing the work, it's through looking those stories that you have about larger bodies, about weight gain, about what it means to be healthy, about what it means to be worthy and attractive. When we unpack all of that, it's a much more authentic way of being and way of understanding yourself, and that's where it trickles into everything else. Is like when you feel better in your body, when you accept your body, you have better sex, you have better relationships, you show up differently at work, you're able to ask for things, you're able to do things that you've always wanted to do. Like that's how I view my client wins, is like I don't care what their weight is day to day. I don't care what their weight is year to year. I love getting those testimonials and client emails where it says, I went to a concert and I got to just
Mhm.
enjoy the concert. I wasn't worried about what I was wearing. I wasn't worried about what I looked like. I wore a bikini for the first time in 20 years. and I felt great in it. Like those are the wins that I'm like, yes. We're doing the things, we're living our lives, we're making the memories. So that's what I want for my clients and for women everywhere.
Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
for moving that too, like yeah, whoever is watching, like, okay, first off, most of the time people are not watching, right? Like you think like,
Right.
oh my God, like you just slipped and fell, and oh my God, like people are not watching. And even if someone saw you, they keep on, they're driving by, they're like, oh, someone fell, and then they move on. Like it's not like,
Well, and if they
oh my
judge you, it's
God.
probably way more about themselves than it is about you to begin with, too.
Yeah, but then really taking that a step further, and yeah, like whoever is, if anyone is judging you for your size or whatever, then that's not the person you want to be around, right? Like you want to
Mhm.
be showing up as authentically you, and you will find those people who accept you as
Yeah.
you. Like whoever
Yeah.
isn't supposed to be in your circle, like whoever can't accept you the way you are, they fall away. They should fall away. You should let them go and
Yes.
invite those people, right? There's make space for new people to come into your life who will take you just the way you are. And it doesn't matter if you're a size 2, a size 0, a size, I don't know, 10, 12, whatever,
Yeah.
right? It really doesn't matter to the people that truly care about you. Like they just
Yeah.
want you to feel your best, to show up as your best. They will support you no matter what. Those
Yeah.
are the
And it's
kind of
the
people you want
world,
around.
it's also about the world that you want to create, right? If you living with your values. The example I often give is like my mother never forced me to diet. She never, I was very lucky in that I wasn't one of those girls that had a mother that, managed their weight, or she never said anything badly about my body. But she did say a lot of terrible things about her own body.
Mm.
And that impacted me. I have said before that my mom taught me how to hate her own body, not by doing or saying unkind things to me, but by modeling that with her relationship with her own body. And that's who we are as a whole with the people we interact with, right? You can't, if you're judging your own body and you say, well, it's about me. I don't feel that way about my best friend, or I don't think about my mom's body like that, or whatever. There is still judgment there about people in larger bodies. If you're judging yourself and worrying about being too fat and having all that negative connotation, that is going to seep out into how you perceive other people. So it's
Yes.
about choosing our values and saying, I want to live in a world where women are taught and deeply believe that we are more than what we look like, that we are more than our bodies. I want women and girls to grow up thinking that the most important thing is their mind and the contribution that they give to the community, the way that they learn, the way that they, problem solve, the way that they show up and help people. And in order to do that, in order to create that world where people are treated with love and respect and kindness, we have to be able to do that with ourselves. We can't do one without the other. So even if we have to start with ourselves. So please, please, please. If you're thinking that it doesn't matter, that, well, I'm just the exception to the rule, I don't treat anyone else like this, it does seep out. So we have to heal our own relationship with our body before we can truly be the person that we want to be.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Yes, and yeah, especially for the children too, because they
Yeah,
don't do what you say, they do what you do, right? They follow the
exactly.
role model. Yeah.
Well, and they internalize it, right? They internalize what they see.
Yeah,
So,
and in the end, they don't even know how they ended up there, right? Until
yeah,
they, right,
until
dig
they do the
deeper and
work.
stuff, right? It's like
Yeah.
all those things they get formed, all these ideals and all these beliefs they get formed when they're little. It's not like they stood there like, yes, I
Yeah.
want self-doubt. Yes, I want to feel the rest of my life that I'm not enough. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, right? Nobody, consciously chose them way back then. It was just
Mhm.
over and over. It was presented to us, and that's just how we internalized it and thought, oh, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So really
Yeah. And it's not
unraveling
about
that.
blame either, right? Like it's not
Oh,
about
no,
saying my mom was a bad mom. It's
no, they
just about
didn't know
saying,
any better.
Exactly. She had the same pressures and the same, struggles that were put on her, and that, she did the healing that she could in other ways. And now it's my turn to take the next step of healing and to break that next generational pattern. So,
Yes. And so that's how we
yeah.
inch our way forward. Yes.
Yeah.
Little by
One
little.
day at a time.
Exactly. It's a journey. It really
It
is a
is. It
journey.
is.
Yes. Oh, this is so good. I love that. Very powerful. Very
Thank
powerful.
you. Thank you. Yeah. So if anybody wants to connect still, they can find me on Instagram, LOYOBOFIT, which stands for Love Your Body Fitness. Everyone always
I was
asks me
gonna
that.
ask.
Yeah, it's Loyobo Love Your Body Fitness.
Yes.
That's where I share so much of my own journey and all kinds of content. I love the Instagram, and I have a free 5-day Unlocking Your Potential course, which is all about kind of what we're talking about, is how do we initially start this process of feeling better and finding our confidence and understanding the story we're telling ourselves about our bodies, so that you can get that initial results to get that momentum to get you going. So
Yeah.
they can reach out to me or go to layobafit.com/free5 to get access to it.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I hope people are gonna, yes, check it out. 'Cause it's so important. It really is
Mhm.
important.
Yeah.
Look into it. Start it and just kind of,
Mhm.
let go of those negative feelings. We
Yeah.
really want to create those lives where we really can show up authentically and live
Yeah. And
our best
celebrate
life.
your body.
Happy.
Celebrate your body. Yeah.
Yes. You don't want to look back at life and be like, oh, it was just a struggle and it really sucked. You can make
Or
that choice.
yeah, or missing out. That's what I think that I'm most afraid
Oh,
of,
that's
is like
true. Yes.
women missing out, not being in pictures, not
I
doing the
was,
things that they
yes.
want to do, not making those memories. It's like, no, I want you to go out and do the things regardless of what your body looks like.
Yes. Show up for your
Mhm.
kids. They don't
Yeah.
mind. They don't look at your
Yeah. Play
size.
at the
They just,
beach, run
exactly. They just
around.
want you to have fun with them. They want you to enjoy yourself.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah. And I think we've had far too many generations that have really been missing the voice and presence of women.
Yes.
Mhm.
This is the time. Oh, well, thank you so much, Courtney. I really, really loved it. That
Thank
was
you
a
so much for
wonderful
having me,
conversation.
Sandy. It was a
Yes,
great conversation.
yes, it was. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure.